All right, we are live. This is the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. Carter, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Just a little rainy week here in Columbus, dealing with some storms the past couple of nights, but overall, good week, man. How about you?
Doing well myself. T-ball just got over, and we are on to the next. I think we're going to be doing hockey next, apparently. So,
Hockey. Whew. Get your checkbook out, man. That's an expensive sport.
yeah. So we got
Nice.
got that
That's
rolling.
awesome. What position? Are you gonna play goalie or like forward? What are we doing?
I don't know. I'm going to be interested to see when we get on the skates. Is
Yeah.
what I'm real
Yeah.
interested about.
Sounds good,
The
man. That's awesome. So I got a little joke for you to start out. I heard this one today. So I was at Speedway getting some gas and some things, and the cashier had a little joke for me, and it
oh
got me a little bit. So I want to know if you've heard this one or if you know the answer. So what? So it's 2024, right?
mm-hmm.
What is the gender neutral term for a sugar daddy?
Uh, no idea.
A glucose guardian.
Okay. All right. I like a little gas station slash truck
Right?
not truck stop humor. If I could speak, I mean it's better than last week when we had Ryan Deli, but
Yeah, I was a little messed up last week, a little under the weather. I couldn't talk, man. That was rough. Feeling much better though, by the way. Thanks for asking.
oh yes, we had that going on. The wild times. Let me pull up the show notes.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's
if
jump
you got
into it, man. We
jump
got
right in.
So, I mean, a lot of stuff going on. I mean, it's late June, so we're getting to July 4th next week. Everybody have a safe 4th if we don't talk to you before then. But um, you know, we're in the midst of college football 25, man. EA Sports releasing the biggest sports game, maybe biggest game ever because of the 10-year hiatus or 11-year hiatus that they've had. But they came out, they keep releasing little nuggets every now and then. I know a lot of people are really pumped for this game. And I know I'm going to be involved in some online dynasties and things like that. But they released the top 25 toughest places to play in the game. And I have some thoughts on this, and so just want to hear. Let me put it up on the screen for everybody here, and get it here. Let me see what you have to think here. So, top 25 toughest places to play, right there. You can see them on the screen. Um, what are your thoughts? I have some thoughts myself. I think there's some that are well ranked and some that need to be moved up or down.
I I understand why Texas A&M would be on there because of past stuff in also when it comes to I think Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Wisconsin. I think all of those are all par for the course. But
Mhm.
I think Florida State is an up and down because when Florida State's really, really good, it's not easy to play there. But if I had
Mhm.
to pick a number one, just off the top of my head, I would go LSU.
Yeah, and I think that's the consensus. I honestly talked to a lot of people, seen a lot of stuff, people commenting on it. I think the consensus is LSU is the hardest place to play in America. That not being number one is maybe the biggest miss on this entire list. There's nothing like Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at night. Even day games are tough. I mean, they do it so well, and their fans are so crazy. Little story: my dad went to a Florida LSU game there when Urban was at Florida, and he went completely alone. Didn't go with anybody else. He just went down there. My brother obviously was coaching at the time, so he couldn't be in the stands with them or anything like that. And so he drives down, he gets to LSU, and he's wearing just normal clothes. Like, he's not wearing Florida gear, he's not wearing LSU gear, he's just in some normal street clothes. And he starts tailgating. And these guys, that are a couple spots down from him, invite him over to tailgate with him. He's playing cornhole, he's eating food with them, having drinks with them, whatever. And then it's getting to be game time. And so my dad's like, all right, guys, yeah, like, have a good time. Like, maybe we'll see you in there, whatever. He goes back to his car, changes out of whatever, jacket he had on, and he puts on a Florida jacket. And he's walking by the same group of guys and same group of people that he just spent like 3 hours tailgating with, partying with. And they immediately just start dog cussing him and like throwing stuff at him. And he's like, dude, I was just cool with you like 2 seconds ago. But as soon as they saw that Florida Gator on his chest, man, everything changed. So I don't know of an environment in college football that's like that. They put batteries inside marshmallows and throw them at players as they're coming out of the tunnel. Like, it is different down there. So that one to me was the biggest misstep of the whole thing. Outside of that, Bama, I agree, over the past probably 20 years has been one of the toughest places to play, especially when you look, they're factoring historical stats such as home winning percentage, home game attendance, active home win streaks, team prestige. Obviously, Bama is going to be at the top of that list. They haven't lost a whole lot in the last 20 years, and they're the most prestigious program in all of college sports over the last decade or whatever. So Nick Saban plays a big role into that. But when I look at it, I've been to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of the top 10. And I got to tell you, man, Ohio State, when it's rocking, it's up there. Don't get me wrong. But Ohio State doesn't crack top 5 for me.
See, I've only been to one on this list, and when I went to Notre Dame Stadium, it was underwhelming, to say the least.
Yeah,
and I have talked to people that have coached in the SEC. You can call anybody that has ever played at Mississippi State when they are good with those cowbells. I talked to a former coach that said he had to wear earplugs underneath his headset, and he still could not hear. That's how loud it is there. So
that must have been like the one year that Dan Mullen had him good. But
even when they're bad, it's still loud there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I agree. Notre Dame, so I'll give you my opinion of Notre Dame. I've been in Notre Dame lots of times. I love Notre Dame Stadium. I love the environment. It's totally different than almost every place on this list. Now, I was there for a USC game at night, and it was definitely, I would rank it top 25, that environment. But that environment's so rare, it doesn't happen every year. And like this year's Florida State game in South Bend at night is going to be one of the craziest environments in college football, I promise you. But it's just so rare. They don't get those games at home every year, and they don't. And it's just, it's not, so Notre Dame to me is just a smaller version of Michigan. It's a big bowl. It isn't that loud. There's just not a whole lot to it, but the environment's great, like campus and everything's awesome, but overall, like Penn State is one of the best environments I've ever been to. I hate that place. I probably will never go back. It's one of the worst stadiums in the world to get to and to navigate, but it's an incredible environment once you're inside.
Well, once you get over the fact that you're in the middle of nowhere, upper state Pennsylvania, you are in Creepy Valley. You've got, you're surrounded by cows. I still, for the life of me, don't understand how they get people to go there, but that's just me.
Hey, they do. 105,000 of them. Man, that place is rocking. You go there for a whiteout night game, especially against Ohio State, which is what I went for. And Ohio State lost that game, and it was absolutely awful. but it was awful because of how passionate everybody was and just how disrespectful they were to me, which is fine. I can take that. Camp Randall is top 3. I mean, there's nothing like Camp Randall, man. That place is rocking. The stadium is moving side to side, like with how many people are there and just how crazy it is. The Swamp, dude, and the Swamp is probably properly rated at number 10 right here because it hasn't been the Swamp since Urban left. Like the Swamp from 2006 to 2010, I would put up against LSU, I'd put up against Bama, I'd put up against Penn State, Wisconsin, Georgia, any of them. It was lights out. I mean, you couldn't go there. But they haven't been worth a shit the past 5-10 years. So
Well, pretty much since Urban left, but they have made it to the SEC championship game a couple of times, and Dan Mullen was a disaster.
Everybody has been pretty much.
Muschamp was a disaster.
Yeah, but and having Florida State over Florida is criminal. I don't care how good Florida State is, and I do give them credit for the Seminole chop and the guy on the horse with the flaming arrow and all that. That's cool.
Chief Osceola.
Yeah, whatever you want to call him. I don't know. The Cleveland can't be the Indians, but they can have some random Native American on a horse throw a spear. But
Chief Osceola flaming spear. Although I'm not the biggest Florida State fan, but it was rocking when they had Jimbo and all those guys. Another one is Between the Hedges down there at Georgia. I think that is.
See, that's one I really need to go to. That one I need to go to. The problem was most of these SEC schools that I've been to, or like Florida State, I went to because I was going to Florida games. And Florida and Georgia never play at Georgia. They always play in Jacksonville. So I never had the opportunity. That's one I need to go to. Neyland Stadium at Tennessee at being 13 is wild because that is one of the coolest environments in all of college football.
I have not been in the stadium, but I have tailgated there. The majority of both sides of my family is from Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and then just on the other side in Nashville. So Tennessee football is a big thing on that side, or on both sides of the family. And I've never been in Neyland, but I've been outside there, and it is loud.
Oh, it's loud. It's crazy cool the way they do all their fan interactions, and they get the checkerboard and everything like that. And then on top of that, man, you got yachts tailgating on the river. Like, I mean, it's just one of the coolest places you could ever go. Having said that, most of that list is the 25 schools you would imagine. I don't see one that really jumps out. I mean, Boise State being up there is interesting, but they have a blue field, so I guess, whatever. Hummus Hero. Okay. I mean, yeah, the criteria is a little goofy. They're taking a lot more into how successful teams are at home. And some of these schools, like Boise State, they don't play home games against really top tier opponents. So it's easy to win, or it's easier to win those games. It should, I agree, should have just been strictly environment. I think that would have hurt people like Ohio State because I don't think the environment's all that great for majority of their games. But it is what it is. I mean, home field advantage in a video game has to include how often you win at home, because there's got to be an advantage to being at home then.
Yeah, and I think they should have a ranking on how easy is it to get out of the parking lot, because I don't know if you've tried to get out of the parking lot at Notre Dame Stadium and try to get back on the toll road heading east. Not fun.
No, I've never done that. So when I go to Notre Dame, normally I have a parking pass. I park pretty close to the stadium. And when the game's over, buddy, I'm heading to the linebacker club, or I'm going somewhere, and I'm waiting for the crowd to disperse and going to continue to enjoy my night for a little bit before I get out of there. But yeah, and if that's the case, Penn State would be dead fucking last.
Oh.
It took me a good 4 hours to get out of that field.
Yeah, because their parking is just a gigantic field. I don't know if anybody knows
Yeah,
that or not,
it's
but
a
Penn
gigantic
State,
field, and they have no signage to tell you where you're parking. So you just have to try to go look by landmarks. It took me near 2 hours to find my car after the game, and then another like 2.5, 3 hours just to get out of the parking lot.
and I've also heard nightmare stories about the shoe as well, trying to get out of that parking lot because
Yeah,
because
I'm
I,
sure it is. I'm sure it is, especially if you park over on like West Campus or something where you got to walk a while back and then it's just packed with people. I don't know. I've never dealt with that. Fortunately for me, but
I mean, even when we went down there for the spring game,
oh yeah,
when I was down there after I left Kirk's event, I mean, it's basically a circle and it's one way in, one way out, and it's a 2-lane road. That
yeah,
is,
it's not ideal. But
it's just like going to Wrigley Field. I don't know if you've ever been there, but
I've
like
not been to Wrigley for like a game, but I've been around Wrigley.
it ranks as far as game day atmosphere, playoff atmosphere, great. Trying to get out of there, unless you like to ride the subway, no thank you.
Well, speaking of baseball, so big news in some college baseball world. Obviously, Tennessee wins the College World Series 2-1. They came back after losing game 1 and won it all. Texas A&M couldn't finish it off, but at least they had their coach, right? Coach Jim Schlossnagle,
Yeah,
I think. Schlossnagle was asked about the potential of leaving Texas A&M after the College World Series, and here, let me just show you what he had to say and what happened, because this is the most typical thing in all of sports. If somebody says they're not going somewhere, I can promise you they're going.
So here's a little backstory. As you've seen on Twitter, I tagged a couple various entities in this, Menace to Sports and Zach, and I said, look at this, what this guy is saying right now. I said, this is the problem with college baseball, or well, college athletics. And then I had somebody comment that he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
And
he is.
he was leaving after that response because I went and looked into old Jim Boy a little bit. He was at TCU from 04 to 2021, and then he decides, I'm going to uproot and I'm going to go on over to Texas A&M. And in my opinion, probably outside of probably Tennessee, the head baseball coach at Tennessee, somewhere like UCLA, some of these blue blood programs that are in college baseball, like Texas is probably the number one job in the nation.
Yeah, and I don't blame him at all for going, but I just can't. I mean, this is just. It's almost like if a coach says I'm not doing this, I promise you he's doing it, because like you look at Saban was never leaving LSU for the Dolphins job. Yep. Like so many people, like Harbaugh was never going to the NFL. Well, he did. I mean, it's just constantly. And I took the job at Texas A&M to never take another job again. That hasn't changed in my mind. 24 hours later, he's the head coach at Texas. Like, not only is he leaving A&M, but he's going to quite literally their biggest rival.
Yes, and now that Texas is in the SEC, you're gonna be seeing that guy down the road. So
yeah, oh yeah, you're gonna see him a couple times a year at least. I mean, it's insane to me. And but I no hate to him for doing it. I think he probably got a significant pay bump. He's going to one of the premier jobs in college baseball. I get every reason why to do it. The only thing I hate is why say that, like, I mean, you obviously knew if that job was offered to you and it was what you thought, that you might take it. So why even say that you wouldn't take it? Oh, I love this one. Hold on. At least he doesn't have a fake accent. Thank you. It's always fuck Brian Kelly on this show.
Oh, it all goes back to Brian Kelly. It all goes back to BK.
But that was just wild to me. Overall, whatever, man. Go make your money. Go coach. I mean, I get it. I'm not upset. Like, if I'm a Texas A&M fan, I'm pissed. But as an overall just college sports fan, like, yeah, man, that's a better job than Texas A&M. Technically,
Yeah.
now you did just take Texas A&M to the College World Series finals, so like, I don't know, like, you could probably get it done there, but maybe I'm guessing he was hired by Bjork, who is now the AD at Ohio State, so probably felt no real loyalty to the new AD at Texas A&M, and fuck it, it's a business. But that was wild to me. That would be like Ryan Day saying after he lost the national championship game, I took this job to never take a job again. And then he goes to Michigan. Like,
Yeah.
what? Dude, that would be wild. He would be the most hated man in America. I mean, Columbus for sure. But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And then I'm just skimming down here, looking at it. The Florida Panthers almost blow the 3-game lead.
Right. Well, hey, talking about hockey with your son, and I can't believe, I mean, Edmonton had all the momentum going into game 7. You know, you go down 3-0, you win game 4 at home, or no, you win game 4 on the road to continue the series, then you win game 5 at home, or however they do it. Anyways, 4 and 6 and 5. And then they go back to Florida for game 7. I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky is somebody that we all know very well here in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
Guy is an exceptional goaltender. Was a great goalie for the Columbus Blue Jackets for many years. Won 2 Vezina trophies. I see you, Chris. But won 2 Vezina trophies. Was an exceptional player. But his MO was he couldn't get it done once we get to the playoffs, man. He would just fall on his face. And for games 1 through 3, he was outstanding. I mean, he was the best player in the playoffs for the most part. Games 4 through 6, games 1 through 3, I think he gave up 4 goals. 4 through 6, he gave up 15. So he's going back to Florida. They're going back to South Beach to play game 7. Dude doesn't even go to practice on the day between games. He's a head case, right? And so everybody's thinking this is going to happen. And he goes out and he plays one of the best games in modern NHL history. I mean, he played out of his mind, made stop after stop, and then won the cup. It was awesome. I don't know if you watched it. I watched every second of it. It was incredible. Connor McDavid, who is the best player in hockey, wins the Conn Smythe, which is the MVP of the playoffs, despite losing the finals. It's insane. But the biggest stat that I saw, and the thing that I think is the most intriguing thing, is that game 7 for the NHL finals. So the NHL is a big 4 sport, right? You got NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL. Those are the big 4.
Correct.
NHL has long been thought of as an afterthought. It's almost like the big 3, NHL, and then everything else, right? Well, game 7 of the NHL finals did over 2 times the viewership in America than the NBA finals did.
Well, if you look at the NHL, I would say outside of the marketing, the NBA is beating them at that. But at every other core aspect of running a league, the NHL is doing better than the NBA, because in the NBA you have load management, you have players running teams, you got the La Lakers out there with LaFlop running them, which I know we don't talk about NBA.
We're not gonna disrespect Akron with Chris Drew in the house. All right.
I just thought it's just a Southern Flint, but with a little bit better water quality. But all I'm saying is, it's just so bad. Like JJ, I am a traditionalist. I don't dislike the Lakers and I don't love the Lakers, but they're a historic brand, a historic franchise.
For sure.
And for them to go out and hire JJ Redick with no coaching experience, zero.
Whoa. He's coached before.
Where?
He was a volunteer 4th grade head basketball coach. Okay.
Me and JJ Redick have the same amount of coaching credentials. So, But my thing is why wouldn't you give a guy that's, maybe like a 10 or 15 year an assistant under somebody like, Pop, or somebody under Steve Kerr, somebody that has their credentials, that went and got the coffee, that grinded in the video room, and then you just hand it to JJ and say he played at Duke and played in the league for 10 years. And it's like, and you go look at the records, the only player that have real success outside of being a first-time head coach is like Jason Kidd, and he's barely above 500, and Larry Bird killed it. But outside of that, that's my NBA rant. I think Jeannie Buss should sell the team or let somebody competent run it, and Rob Pelinka looks like a Jim Gaffigan doll.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. But you mentioned somebody. You mentioned why don't they hire somebody that's been an assistant coach for years, right, under somebody like Popovich, or let's say Steve Kerr, right?
They at least pick up the phone.
Okay. What was Steve Kerr's background as a coach before he got the head coaching job for the Golden State Warriors?
I believe he was an assistant under Pop for a little bit. He wasn't?
Nope. His first coaching job was the head coach of the Golden State Warriors.
Well, it's...
So I'm just saying.
So there's two outliers out of like 20.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's the best thing to do, but there's a track record for it. So if they think that JJ Redick is Steve Kerr, I mean, he's been a pretty successful coach, right? So let him do it, whatever. And outside of that, I mean, I don't love the hire, especially as the Lakers organization. I mean, the Warriors, I think, were in a little different spot than the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers are the Lakers, right? That's the most historic franchise in all of sports, almost.
Outside the Celtics.
Yeah, well, they might. Well, okay, yeah. But regardless, anyways, the NHL is better than the NBA was all I was trying to say, and that's that. Bobrovsky gets a Stanley Cup. He cements his legacy as a Hall of Fame goaltender. They're going to hang his rafters in Nationwide Arena here eventually, and it's a good day.
All right, moving on. What do we got? Ryan Day to Florida.
This is the most asinine thing I've ever heard. Yeah, go ahead.
It just, who thinks putting this story out gives you any credibility at all?
It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It's the most. It's as ridiculous as thinking that Marcus Freeman's going to leave for, what was it, Ole Miss or Arkansas? Or it was Arkansas, yeah. Like, come on, guys. We got to be better. Like, Ryan Day is, if he's leaving Ohio State, it's because he was told to leave, first of all. And second of all, he's not going to Florida. Like, get out of here. There's no way that makes any sense logically, anything. Like, it's literally one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And there's so many reasons. First of all, if he's going to leave Ohio State and it's not because he's fired, he's going to the NFL. That's just That's what it is. And if he gets fired from Ohio State, he's probably also going to the NFL. Like, he's going to go be an offensive coordinator somewhere. Like, he's not going to go from Ohio State to Florida. I promise you that. And so I saw this, and first of all, the clickbait titles on some of these articles is just hilarious. Like, Paul Feinbaum speculates on Ryan Day leaving Ohio State to be the head coach of Florida. No, he didn't. He didn't speculate shit. He said, no, that's not going to happen. Ryan Day is either suited for the Midwest or the NFL. I don't see a scenario where he would come to Florida. That's not speculation. That's pretty straightforward. No, that's not going to happen. So quit asking. But the fact that it was even a title, like I get so annoyed with some of these fucking clickbait shit.
Because whenever I was scrolling through the notes after you sent them over, I just seen that, and I'm just like, and then I clicked on the link, and I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. The story is contradictory. And
yeah, because Paul Feinbaum doesn't speculate at all. He says, no, that's not happening.
And, you know, I mean, if Paul Feinbaum would have, you know, if there would have been any rumblings at the Woody Hayes about Ryan Day leaving, Paul Feinbaum would have been the first one to hear it with those ears.
With those big, yeah, I know. But so just to put it to rest for everybody, Ryan Day is not going to Florida. Florida is going to fire Billy Napier this year because he has an unwinnable schedule, and they're going to hope to God they can get somebody like Jedd Fisch.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I think if Billy wins a game that he's not supposed to, I think they'll keep him.
Yeah, but like, how many wins does that give him? Because you can't go 5-7 and keep your job.
I think he might.
No way. No way. I mean, we'll see. I'll keep this on the record, but we'll see.
Because
there's no way.
Here's the thing when it comes into getting rid of a coach. This is just my opinion on it. It completely throws, with the transfer portal now, it completely throws your program into a tailspin, and you'll be worse off than where you started if you get rid of Billy.
I'm telling you right now,
like,
there is, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily disagree, but the money guys at Florida are not going to accept 5-7. Like, it's just that's unacceptable. And this is the same argument that we've gotten into before about, like, I forget who it was, but it's, well, who are you going to get that's better? I have no fucking idea, but it can't get much worse. So, I mean,
I could see Dabo. I could see Dabo out before Billy. And
yeah,
I
think they both could be out, but yeah.
And I've talked to a couple inside people on the Dabo thing. One guy tells me Dabo's got a lifetime contract. He's not going anywhere, no matter how bad it gets. But I've also heard, on the other hand, if Dabo goes 8-4 again, he's like the second or third highest paid coach in college football, and he could be on the chopping block. And like Zach had pointed out, Lincoln Riley's little brother's right there being the O coordinator. So either Garrett's going to leave this year, or I wouldn't stay at Clemson. The ship is sinking.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's I think those two things are very unrelated. I think they both could equally happen. I know for a fact that given Florida's schedule, I think Billy Napier is a dead man walking. And I don't think there's anything he can do outside of absolutely shocking the world and going 8-4 that keeps his job. And I think they already have a plan in place for when he's, 1-6 and they fire him and let the interim coach finish the year. And then they go after somebody like Jedd Fisch, or, try to pull Kyle Whittingham from Utah and get their Utah guy back, or even go get Urban Meyer. I mean, they got to do something, man. This isn't working. And it's not Billy's fault even. That's the part that sucks. But
See, that's my issue with it, because
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
the program was smoldering
Yeah.
before he took it over, and you're expecting this guy to make chicken salad out of chicken shit, essentially.
That's the job, unfortunately.
But I don't think Billy's had enough time to get this thing turned around.
And if Florida wants to be relevant in college football again, unfortunately, that's how you got to do it. You can't give somebody more time. Like, I think nowadays the days of giving somebody 5 years to turn a program around, those have been long gone for a while.
I'm not saying give him 5 years. I'm saying,
what, this is year 3, right?
Yeah, I'm saying give him
Yeah,
another
you
year.
you get 3 years, man. That is the max. If you can't at least produce a winning program after 3 years, sorry. That's it. In big time college football, you don't get more than 3 years. And it's unfortunate that the SEC did him the way that he did, and he has he has by far the hardest schedule in college football this year, and he's going to get absolutely destroyed because of it. But that if you are a big time program like Florida claims to be, you can't just sit back and let them go 5-7 and say, well, it was just a tough schedule this year. No, we're supposed to be one of the premier programs in college football. You mean we can't go out and win more than 5 games? Get out of here.
Right. I just think Billy needs more time. And for the people that are watching at home, the NBA draft just kicked off. That's exciting.
Yeah, just wait. Bronny's going to LA, baby.
And that's why the Lakers are now the NBA laughing stock.
Nah, he's going to win 2 titles his first 2 years. But all right, let's jump into some Notre Dame stuff. Let's get this going. Enough about all the bullshit going on in social media and everything like that. So we had a article come out today, I believe it was. Former Notre Dame legend, Dublin Kaufman alum, Brady Quinn was asked about Riley Leonard and weighed in on what he thought of Riley Leonard. I think this is a whole lot of nothing, honestly. I think, first of all, Brady Quinn is great at his job. He's a great analyst, but he's not going to dive into the weeds and give you anything more than, Fox Sports analysis take. However, the one thing he did say, and I think this is the biggest issue that Notre Dame has going into the year, is can Riley get healthy? And I've seen a lot of good things coming out of summer workouts and things like that, where they say he's 100%, he's good to go. But Brady weighed in on foot injuries because he had a couple, and it derailed his career in Cleveland pretty significantly. The thing with foot injuries is that even when you're 100%, you're never really 100%. And he knows that firsthand. And I think that's the biggest concern right now in Notre Dame football.
Well, it's something that, in a couple shows ago that we had talked about, I said Notre Dame's season hinges on the 3 pins that are in his ankle, because if he cannot go and he's not healthy that season, and that, they got the quarterback room rated really high and things of that sort, but it's on the contingent that Riley Leonard plays. And I just, I go back to this. You paid a kid $1 million in NIL for 150 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. He didn't even have better numbers than Graham Mertz. Shout out Chris Drew.
But so here's the thing. I think the biggest issue with that, and I think Riley is going to be a good quarterback for Notre Dame. I hope he stays healthy. I think that's imperative. The quarterback room is really deep and really good without him. The biggest thing to me, and the biggest difference between, like, when you look at rosters, right? You look at Ohio State's roster. If Will Howard is not the guy, like Will Howard and Riley Leonard, both $1 million men, brought in transfer portal. If Will Howard's not the guy at Ohio State or he gets hurt, that roster is so deep and talented that I think they can still contend for a national title with whoever's at quarterback. Notre Dame doesn't have that luxury. Defensively, Notre Dame's defense is going to be right with Ohio State's. So it's not a defensive issue. It's a skill position issue on offense. You don't have the wide receiver room that Ohio State has. And you don't have the talent that Ohio State has. So if Riley Leonard can't go and that ankle injury is not 100%, I think I think that makes your offense really, really unstable. And hopefully that the backups can be up to par, but I still think you need more of a playmaker at quarterback than a young kid who's unproven.
Well, to me, I think it also comes down to how well the offensive line plays. And some people out there seem to think that the interior offensive line is going to be better than what it was last year, but you're starting 2 new tackles. So, I mean, you can keep the Notre Dame fan goggles on, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think their offensive line is going to be fine. Notre Dame's offensive line historically is always fine, so I'm not worried about the offensive line. I'm worried about the skill positions, and so I'll show this one. I said foot. You're right. It was an ankle injury, a little different. However, this one right here is what I love. I love the confidence. I love it. However, those 7 wide receivers would not start at any other program that is competing for a national title. Ohio State would not take a single one. Georgia would not take a single one. There's not one wide receiver on this roster that can compete with the level of athlete at those other programs. So I agree. They have experience at wide receiver. They have guys that can play as long as they have a quarterback that can make plays for them. Other rosters have guys that can make plays for their quarterback. I haven't seen that on the Notre Dame roster yet.
It's gonna, when it all meshes together, a lot of the things that we're saying now, I get it. It's the end of June, July. But when you see it, look at this.
I see that. Over who? I guess that would be my question. Cam Williams, I agree, has the potential to be a really good player. Cam Williams is a true freshman. He's not going to light the world on fire at Notre Dame this year. He could be a great wide receiver later. Micah Gilbert, I don't know who he would play over. He's not playing over Carnell Tate. He's not playing over Jeremiah Smith. He's not playing over Brandon Inniss. He's definitely not playing over Emeka Egbuka. Like, those are 4 wide receivers that would start over him for sure. So I get it. And I think Micah Gilbert is a good wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. I'm not claiming that. I'm saying he's not a playmaker that can make up for a quarterback that's unable to make the throws. Whereas Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Inniss, Jeremiah Smith are. But I'm not even just Ohio State. I don't want to focus on them. Ohio State has probably the best wide receiver room in America. Again, on paper, like you said. However, Notre Dame's is not quite up to that same level. However, that's why Riley Leonard is so important. And so hopefully Brady's right. Hopefully he can be the guy. He said he's a big bodied guy. My concern is if he can't use his legs, which is a big part of his game because he can't trust his ankle, then that's going to be kind of a concern for Notre Dame fans. But obviously time will tell. we will see.
Yep. That's why I cannot wait until they play Texas A&M to see what we've been, going over and things of that sort this whole off season, to see what we were right on and what we were wrong on. But I think
Yeah,
the interior of that offensive line is not going to be what you think it's going to be.
I don't know about that. I think it definitely could be, and I think Texas A&M will be a good test early. I'm on record as saying that I think they could, um, win that game pretty handily. I don't think Texas A&M is going to be extraordinary this year, but I think that's going to be a good test. Now, on some more Notre Dame quarterback topics. Obviously, we've followed the Deuce Knight saga and the Deuce Knight story very closely. Deuce Knight went out to the Elite 11 camp or competition and lit it up. He won the MVP. If you are reading the On3 reports, which I don't put a stock in On3 24/7. So the Elite 11 committee selected the Bama quarterback. However, everything I've read, everything I've heard, everything that's been talked about was Deuce Knight absolutely lit it up. He was right there. If you look at his pro day, he was on fire. He didn't really miss a throw. So this is part of the problem with camps like this or competitions like this. It seems like Deuce got kind of knocked down or hurt by some receivers that dropped the ball or were tired and couldn't catch up to the ball that he threw. So he overthrew some guys. But all in all, Deuce Knight was absolutely one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the nation at that competition. Now, not every top quarterback was there. Obviously, I think Bryce Underwood didn't go. The guy, Ohio State's guy, was one of the top 3 as well, and then Bama's guy, same Tavian St. Clair was up there. Overall, the reports are Deuce couldn't have done anything better. He was one of the top quarterbacks there. He looked awesome. It's just he got kind of bad luck of the draw when it came to some of the receiver play.
Well, when it comes to those camps like that, when you have so many of those kids that, you're bringing in, 30 to 40 different kids that have never really worked with each other. So it's a huge learning curve. That's why the Elite 11 is good. It's just that I think sometimes it's skewed a bit.
I agree, but overall, coming out of it, I think Notre Dame has to feel really good about their quarterback in this class. Obviously, there's certain people that are on record as saying that he will not stay at Notre Dame and that he will be committed to other places. But everything I'm seeing, he looks pretty locked in. And if he does end up committing to Notre Dame, I think that is the biggest quarterback recruit they've gotten since Jimmy Clausen. Yeah, probably since Jimmy Clausen. I mean, and hopefully he's a bigger recruit than Jimmy Clausen ended up being. Not that he was a bad quarterback. Obviously, he was still a top 10 pick or something like that in the NFL draft. On top of that, more recruiting news. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, who's a top 100 player in the 2026. So it's amazing. We're in June of 2024. We're already talking about 2026 recruiting. And he's a top 100 player. He named his top 5 schools: Notre Dame, Florida, Michigan, Ohio State, and USC. So that's a hell of a top 5 to recruit against if you're Notre Dame. Obviously, Michigan, reigning national champs. Ohio State, one of the best recruiting schools in the country. You got your rival in USC, and then Florida, who, as soon as they fire Billy Napier, will probably be out of his top 5. So, and on top of that, does that name sound familiar at all to you?
Yes.
That's right. So here's one thing that Notre Dame fans can be excited about. So Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng is the half brother of none other than Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who was first round, or I think he slipped to the second, but NFL draft pick out of Notre Dame. So he played at Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman was on staff when he was there. So that family connection is there. JOK is currently killing it as a Cleveland Brown. He's about to get a big contract and probably be a cornerstone of what I think is the best defense in the NFL. The question is, can they land him? He's going to be a coveted recruit right now. He's currently a 4-star out of Jacksonville, Florida. They got the connection to him, but this is a big time recruit for Marcus Freeman. And every year there seems to be one or two big time recruits, and if they land them, the class will be elite.
Well, I just looked at looking at his top schools again. I don't think Florida would make the top 3, and I don't think Michigan would, and I would say it's probably down to I think Ohio State would get a meeting, but I think that pretty much this kid's locked up. He's going to probably go to Notre Dame.
I hope so. And when you read his comments, the thing is, the kid, he's a 2026 recruit. So what is he, 16 years old right now?
Yeah.
But you read his comments, every official visit he goes on, he comes out like, I don't know, that might be the spot. And so he talked about Notre Dame, and he was very complimentary and said how great Notre Dame was, and he could see himself there. And then he talked about Michigan, and he said the culture was amazing. Sharon Moore was great. I could definitely see myself here. And then he talked about USC, and he was like, LA is incredible. Being in that market, I could definitely see myself here. And then he talked about Ohio State, and it's like everywhere he goes, he says the same stuff. So it's too early to tell, but if JOK can do anything to help his half brother, it's to push him to South Bend.
Well, I just, Marcus Freeman already knows the family. This is just my one warning to Michigan fans out there. The hammer is coming. It may not be today. It may not be tomorrow. But I think when the NCAA gets done with those guys, it's going to show. And I think it's going to completely set their program back 10 years. And they're going to be needing a new head coach, which I think Tony Alford will probably be the head coach there, interim.
I hate to burst your bubble and a lot of bubbles around the world. I hate to say it. I don't think there's a hammer, bro. I don't think so. I think it's done. It's, they got what they got. They're going to kind of move on from it. I keep hearing this hammer's coming, and it never does. So we'll see. I hope you're right, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think they'll get some slaps on the wrist, some scholarship reductions and recruiting, suspensions. There's nothing hammer coming. They're not going to vacate wins. They're not going to show cause anybody. They're just going to slap them on the wrist and tell them don't do it again. I think that's most likely at this point, just because of how everything's gone. And I think ultimately anybody that's holding on to hope for more is just, if I'm Notre Dame, I'm not even talking about that. That's not part of my recruiting pitch, because I'm going to look stupid when it happens.
And I think negative recruiting is Bush League to begin with.
I think there's a fine art to negative recruiting. So when you're going up against programs that are inferior in certain aspects, I think it is relevant to point that out to a kid. But I don't think you lead with that. That's never, if your lead is how bad the other school is, you're not confident enough in your school to sell what you guys do great. However, like just a story, there was a kid being recruited by Ohio State and a couple other schools. And one of the things that was very important to his family was the academics of the schools. And so Ohio State pitched really hard on the academic side of things. And he said, yeah, I know, like Ohio State's a good school. He was considering places like Florida State and things like that. And then he said, yeah, Florida State was one of the top 10 schools in the country as far as, graduation rate or whatever it was. And so that's where you kind of lean into, oh, were they? I don't really know that. Okay, that's crazy. Here, do me a favor and Google this. And you tell them exactly the stat to Google. And it pulls up that actually they were like mid 70s, but they found their one thing that so negative recruiting goes both ways, and it happens all the time, and there's nothing wrong with it as long as it's done right, I guess. I don't know, but that's just my opinion, because part of recruiting is selling yourself over the competition.
Right, and as long as you offer a better product, and I think NIL has something to do with that as well.
For sure.
So it's all a wait and see game at this point. I just cannot wait until the end of August to when they can strap up the pads and go at it.
Oh, I agree completely. I think that's what we're all waiting for, right? But just to close out kind of the recruiting news and everything like that, I thought this was interesting because one of the commitments that I've been really concerned about with the potential of Deuce Knight flipping. Again, I'm on record as saying I don't think he's going to. We had a comment here, right here. He's been on Notre Dame's campus 11 times. Yeah, he's been there a lot, and I think he is pretty solid commitment. However, there are a lot of rumblings out of the Southeast that are saying that maybe that commitment is not as strong as people think. And one of the people that I thought was most important to keep if you do lose Deuce Knight, or even if you don't lose Deuce Knight, you have to keep him, was Dallas Golden, who is the safety defensive back out of Florida. We talked about after he committed kind of what he is, and he's a cornerstone of this class, as much so as Deuce Knight. Like, he is a top level athlete, and I think he could be great. And he just reaffirmed this past weekend his commitment to Notre Dame, and I think this is huge for Notre Dame. The fact that he tweeted out that he's not taking any other visits this summer. He just took one to Notre Dame, and that's it. And he called Notre Dame home, and I think that's huge. I think keeping this kid is imperative to the entire class, and just that's a huge get for Notre Dame if they can keep him locked in.
Right. I just hope all goes well. And I think it has something to do with when it comes down to it, it's one of those things that you gotta have a good season to keep landing kids consistently, because bad programs aren't signing kids.
Yeah, like early on as a new head coach, right? You can sell the dream. You can sell the vision. But the longer you're into your tenure as the head coach, you have to produce results, or else kids stop believing in that vision. So obviously this is a huge year for Marcus. Year 3, he had a rough year 1, losing some games he shouldn't have lost. Last year, much better year. Still lost, that Louisville game was a little rough. Maybe shouldn't have lost it. Oh, well, it happens. This year has got to be, it's playoffs. You got to get to the playoffs. That's the bottom line. You got to be top 12 in the country. You got to make the playoffs. And if that happens, the recruiting train will keep running.
Right, and I think the playoff exposure is huge. I just, you just got to keep it rolling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But that's all. I mean, that's really all I got on Notre Dame. Again, it's late June, not a whole lot going on, so it's mostly recruiting updates, a little bit on Riley Leonard's health. Outside of that, I mean, we're just waiting, man. We're 66 days away from kickoff at Kyle Field, so we're getting there, and we're almost there, man.
Yeah, it is a long time coming. Side note, in the NBA draft, 2 French players picked 1 and 2.
I don't even know who. I don't even know who they are.
That's just what it was. I think this may be the first time ever in the NBA. So
that's crazy. Must be a weak draft. But they just let me know when my guy Reed Shepard goes. That's the one to watch. I'm telling you.
Yes, he went 3rd overall to the Houston
Let's
Rockets.
go. Oh, never mind.
And yeah, Richie is right.
Yeah, 21 days.
And that we're not pro Brian Kelly here. It's just the fact that Brian Kelly did so much to the Notre Dame program, and I think he set it back. And Marcus needs the time to bring it forward in the recruiting, because I think Marcus is doing strides to get, some kids that wouldn't probably be admitted into school. And I think with everything the way it's trending, it's going in the right direction. It just has to be done correctly.
Yeah, no, I think Brian Kelly did an okay job recruiting. I mean, he recruited at a pretty high level. He didn't develop and he didn't recruit certain positions well. I mean, they really underperformed offensively when he was there, honestly. And listen, you're never going to get Brian Kelly love from me. Fuck Brian Kelly every day. However, I think that Marcus Freeman has taken the recruiting to the next level. It's just in order to keep it there, you have to produce results on the field. That's just how that works. On top of that, I think you have to produce results in the draft. It's going to be really hard. It's never going to be hard for Marcus Freeman to recruit top-level defensive talent. He's going to do that because his defenses will always be really good. Unless Dan Brock can come in and turn Notre Dame's offense into something more than what it's been, I think it's going to be difficult to continue to recruit high-level offensive talent. They don't want to go to places that don't produce on the field. And it's no different than Ohio State's recruiting hasn't been great on defense over the past 5 years because their defenses haven't been great until last year. So it's been hard to recruit that. They recruit high-end offensive talent every year because Ryan Day, offensive coach, produces high-level offenses every year. So it's the same thing. You got to be able to produce on the field to continue to recruit at the clip that they are. And at the end of the day, Notre Dame has its easiest schedule in 20 years this year. So you got to go out and you got to put it on the field. I mean, I love Marcus Freeman. I think he's a great coach. I think he's going to do that. I'm on record saying I think they go 11-1, I think is what I predicted. And that's just based off of probably they lose one. I mean, it's college football. Most people do. But it also could go downhill really quick if things don't work out the right way.
I think it's game 1, week 1. is how the season's going to go, because if they go out down to Texas A&M and lay an egg, if you go back and look at the historic records of Notre Dame, when they lose week 1, the season hasn't went well.
Well, and on top of that, it sets the tone for the year, right? Like, they have high expectations, they have high goals, they have really lofty aspirations for the year. So they expect to win week 1. And if they go out and they don't, it's going to be – that's where you're going to find out, because this is one of the things that some coaches do really well. And Marcus is kind of an unknown in this because he's rebounded from losing games at times, but not as well as he should at others. If you go out and you lose week 1, your season's not over. Like, you still have an opportunity to win the national championship if you lose week 1. This is the first time, maybe the first time, but I mean, since the playoff, this is the first time that that's a thing. So if you go out and lose week 1, it's all about how you respond. And if they rattle off 11 wins in a row after that, obviously they'll be a playoff team. They'll have a chance. But I think that week 1 game sets the tone for the year, and losing it would be a really uphill battle from there.
Right. So with that being said, you ready to wrap this thing up, Carter?
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much, everybody coming out, listening, engaging. I love when people comment and engage with us. Like, I like to throw those comments up and have a discussion about it. So appreciate everybody listening. Go like the page, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, PodBean, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. So appreciate everybody listening. Keep it going.
What do you think about this?
Okay.
I say 11 men on the field in the Marshall loss, but
yeah, I mean, they didn't get blown out. I'll give them that. They've never gotten blown out. They definitely made mistakes. Obviously, Marshall is a prime one. That's a huge mistake. Ohio State, whatever. Give it to. I mean, they didn't have a full defense. That was crazy. On top of that, I'm not questioning Freeman over Brian Kelly. Let's just get that straight. That's not the case at all. All right. I think Brian Kelly's a joke. I think he's going to be absolutely miserable at LSU, and he's already making excuses because of it. He's never going to win there. The best he's going to do was the past couple years when he made the SEC title game and had a Heisman winner in Jaden Daniels that he didn't do shit to get. I agree with that. However, I'm not questioning it. It's not a Brian Kelly versus Marcus Freeman analysis here. I'm saying that Marcus Freeman has to prove himself this year. I'm not saying he can't.
All right, but with that being said, the one tidbit that I have to add to that is that every LSU coach dating back to Saban, all of them have been to a national championship. So we shall see if Brian Kelly is in the same fate. But with that, everybody, hit
not
the like.
Happen, so quit asking.
Hit the like and subscribe, and it helps boost and grow the channel. But all right, that is it for tonight. You guys have a good night.